The girl from beyond the sea. The sun falls slowly over the Aegean, casting a golden hue across the restless waves that roll like folds of silk upon the shore. The faint cry of gulls drifts through the evening haze, mingling with the distant toll of church bells from the village below. On the rugged island of Tinos, where olive trees cling tenaciously to wind-beaten cliffs and the scent of wild thyme perfumes the air, a young girl named Anastasia tends a small oil lamp before a weathered icon of the Virgin Mary. She is the daughter of a humble Greek Orthodox priest, a child raised amid prayers, the laughter of siblings chasing through narrow stone paths, and tales of saints who walked on water and sailors who braved the wrath of Poseidon. Her world is one of simple joys, gathering figs from ancient groves, weaving garlands for festivals, and listening to her father's voice rise in solemn chants during Vespers. She does not yet know that her name will vanish like foam on the tide, swept away by the inexorable currents of fate. But innocence is fragile in a world where empires clash like thunderheads. Over the sea, one fateful summer morning in 1604, the stillness of the island shatters like fragile pottery. Pirate ships, Ottoman corsairs, swift and dark as shadows appear on the horizon, their sails billowing like the wings of predatory birds. The villagers awaken to screams and the acrid smoke of burning thatch roofs. Flames devour homes built by generations, and the air fills with the desperate cries of mothers clutching their children. Anastasia, barely 15, hides in the olive groves, her heart pounding like a war drum. But frightened hands seize her amid the chaos. Rough ropes bind her wrists, and she is dragged aboard a creaking vessel, the deck slick with salt and blood. To the men who trade in flesh, raiders from the distant shores of Bosnia, she is merely a prize, a commodity to be bartered in bustling markets. To fate, however, she is a seed planted in foreign soil, destined to grow into a force that would shake the foundations of an empire. The journey across the sea is a blur of terror and despair. Chained below decks, Anastasia endures the relentless rocking of the waves, the stench of unwashed bodies, and the leering eyes of her captors. Whispers among the other captives speak of distant lands where women are veiled and towers pierce the sky. Days bleed into nights until at last the towers of Istanbul rise before her, gleaming under the crescent moon like a vision from a forbidden dream. The city is a sprawling miracle of marble domes, minarets piercing the heavens, and waterways teeming with galleys from every corner of the known world, the beating heart of the Ottoman Empire, which spans 3 continents, from the sands of Arabia to the forests of the Balkans and the gates of Vienna. Anastasia is sold in the slave markets of Constantinople, her fate sealed by the clink of coins. She enters the imperial harem of Topkapi Palace, a labyrinthine world both feared and misunderstood by outsiders. Behind its gilded gates and towering walls, guarded by black eunuchs with stern gazes, 1,000 women live in seclusion, their lives a tapestry of luxury and intrigue, their destinies forever intertwined with the whims of the Ottoman throne. Here in this opulent prison of silk and marble, the girl from the Aegean must shed her past like a serpent's skin. Inside those walls, Anastasia learns new words that twist her tongue, new gestures of deference and grace, and the profound art of silence that speaks louder than shouts. Her Greek prayers to the Virgin bend reluctantly to invocations of Allah, her simple woolen dresses exchanged for flowing silks embroidered with gold thread. Tutors drill her in the intricacies of Turkish, the rhythms of Persian poetry, and the subtleties of court etiquette. She's bathed in rose-scented waters, anointed with perfumes of amber and musk, and given a new name, Marpeka, moon-faced, for the luminous pallor of her skin and the serene glow of her features. In time, another name will follow, Kösem, the leader of the flock, evoking the ram that guides its herd through treacherous paths. To some it is a gift, a nod to her emerging poise and influence. To others it is a warning, a harbinger of the ambition that simmers beneath her calm exterior. The harem is not merely a cage of idle pleasures, as whispered tales in European courts suggest, but a shadowed court unto itself, a realm of tutors imparting lessons in astronomy and philosophy, tailors crafting garments fit for queens, poets reciting verses that stir the soul, and spies weaving webs of information that could topple viziers. Every smile may conceal a dagger's edge. Every whisper may unlock a hidden door or seal a rival's doom. Here amid the fountains tinkling in scented gardens and the rustle of veils in marble halls, Kösem masters the subtle grammar of survival, the art of waiting, observing and striking only when the moment is ripe. She forms alliances with other concubines, learns the loyalties of the eunuchs who control access to the sultan, and hones her intellect like a blade. Little does she know that her path will lead her from the fringes of this world to its very center, where the fate of empires hangs in the balance. Beyond the harem's lush gardens, where peacocks strut amid blooming roses and the air hums, with the murmur of hidden fountains, stands the majestic blue mosque, its minarets rising like spears toward the sky under the ambitious construction ordered by the young Sultan Ahmed III. As barely a man at 19, Ahmed carries the crushing burden of an empire inherited from his father, Mehmed III, whose reign ended in cruelty and fratricide. To secure his throne, Ahmed's brothers had been strangled in the shadows of the palace, a grim Ottoman tradition to prevent rival claims. Haunted by these ghosts, Ahmed swore that mercy and justice would guide his rule. Though the world around him, rife with scheming viziers, rebellious janissaries, and encroaching enemies like the Safavids and Habsburgs, knew little of such ideals. His court is a whirlwind of reforms. He seeks to curb corruption, build grand mosques as symbols of piety, and foster alliances with distant powers like England and Venice. When Ahmed first encounters Kösem in the harem's opulent halls, it is not merely her beauty that arrests him. Her tall, slender frame, deep brown eyes, and moon-like complexion, but her profound stillness amid the fluttering chaos of other concubines. While they lower their gazes in practiced submission, she meets his with a calm, unafraid intensity, as if peering into his soul. In a palace where every face wears a mask of flattery or fear, she offers the simple, unadorned truth of being truly seen. Intrigued, the Sultan summons her to his private chambers, where conversations begin tentatively, but soon deepen into shared reflections on poetry from Rumi's verses, the mysteries of the stars charted by Ottoman astronomers, and the heavy weight of crowns that bend even the strongest shoulders. Ahmed finds solace in her presence, a rare oasis of peace in his turbulent life. She in turn discovers in him a kindred spirit, a ruler who dreams not only of conquest but of harmony. He calls her my mirror, for she reflects his thoughts with clarity and wisdom, advising subtly on matters of state, without overstepping the invisible boundaries of the harem. Their bond, rare in the annals of Ottoman history, is a partnership of the mind as much as the heart. Whispers in the night turn to plans for the empire's future, and Kösem's influence grows like vines creeping over palace walls. Venetian ambassadors note her shrewdness, reporting how she sways the Sultan's decisions with gentle persuasion. earning both admiration and envy. Years flow like the ceaseless Bosphorus below their windows, carrying with them joys and sorrows. Kösem bears Ahmed several children, princes and princesses whose laughter echoes through the harem's corridors, but whose futures will one day ignite rivalries that threaten to divide the empire. Sons like Mehmed, Orhan, Murat, Kösem, and Ibrahim arrive amid celebrations, each birth strengthening her position as Haseki Sultan, the favored consort with the stipend of 1,000 aspers a day and jewels that rival the treasury's hoard. Daughters such as Aishi, Fatma Hanzadeh, and Gevahan are groomed for strategic marriages, forging alliances with powerful pashas and viziers. For now, in these golden years, Kösem walks beside a ruler who dreams of order and prosperity. Ahmed builds not only the Blue Mosque, but aqueducts to quench the city's thirst, ends needless executions of princes, and surrounds himself with scholars who debate philosophy under his patronage. Through it all, Kösem absorbs the lessons of power tempered by compassion, learning how mercy can be a sharper weapon than the sword. Yet fate, ever capricious, is never gentle with those who love too deeply. Plague creeps insidiously through Istanbul's narrow, crowded lanes, claiming lives like a silent thief. Wars with the Safavids drain the treasury, leaving soldiers unpaid and borders vulnerable. Suspicion festers in the court, where factions whisper of poison and plots. Ahmed, weakened by typhus and the ceaseless demands of rule, dies young in 1617, perhaps more from exhaustion than malice, though rumors of foul play linger like smoke. The palace plunges into mourning, the harem's women wailing in ritual grief as his body is prepared for burial in the mausoleum he built. Kösem, still in her 20s, stands before the sealed doors of the Sultan's chambers, her veil damp with tears. She knows that love has ended, fleeting as a summer storm, and that duty, a colder, more enduring mistress, now begins. With her children vulnerable in a court where succession means survival, she must navigate the treacherous waters ahead, her grief forged into resolve. The Ottoman dynasty, vast and ancient, grants no crowns to daughters, only to mothers who wield power through their sons like invisible threads pulling at the strings of empire. Kösem now bears the exalted title of Valide Sultan, mother of the sovereign, a role that elevates her from consort to queen mother. But it is the most dangerous honor a woman can hold, fraught with envy, betrayal, and the constant shadow of death. In the wake of Ahmed's passing, his brother Mustafa ascends the throne in a break from tradition, his accession supported by Kösem to shield her young sons from the fratricidal Osman, Ahmed's eldest, by another consort. Mustafa, fragile in mind and spirit, rules erratically, his court manipulated by eunuchs and viziers hungry for influence. Kösem watches from behind the ornate lattice screens of the harem, her spies relaying every murmur as ministers quarrel over taxes and janissaries, the elite infantry, mutter discontent in the vast courtyards of Topkapi. Rebellions simmer in the provinces, Cossack raids plague the Black Sea coasts, and the empire's coffers strain under the weight of endless campaigns. Mustafa's reign crumbles swiftly, his instability leading to deposition after mere months. Osman II, young and ambitious, takes the throne, banishing Kösem and her children to the old palace in a bid to consolidate power. Yet Osman's reforms, attempting to curb the janissaries' privileges, ignite fury. In 1622, a bloody revolt erupts. Osman is captured, humiliated and strangled, his death marking the first regicide in Ottoman history. Mustafa returns briefly, but chaos reigns until Kösem, allying with palace factions, orchestrates his final removal. The throne passes to her eldest surviving son, Murad IV, a boy of 11, whose wide eyes belie the storms ahead. With Murad too young to rule, the empire needs a firm hand, and the Council of Viziers turns to the Valide. Kösem becomes regent of the empire, the first woman in decades to hold such overt authority. Her procession back to Topkapı, a spectacle of triumph, with crowds lining the streets as her carriage, draped in silks, rolls through the gates amid cheers and the boom of cannons. Her rule is quiet, almost invisible, a masterpiece of subtlety in a world dominated by men's bluster. She holds audiences behind latticed screens in the divan hall, listening intently as grand viziers report on distant battles, her voice emerging soft but unyielding. Letters flow from her chambers to provincial governors across Anatolia, Egypt and the Balkans, penned in a script as delicate as lace, yet edged with the steel of command. She addresses crises with pragmatism, funding soup kitchens to feed the starving during famines, repairing mosques damaged by earthquakes, and ensuring the janissaries' salaries are paid on time to stave off mutiny. Small acts, perhaps, but they weave a web of loyalty that keeps rebellion at bay. Within the harem, Kösem practices a subtler diplomacy, reshaping its intricate hierarchies. Concubines loyal to rival factions are strategically moved to distant pavilions, promoted to safer roles, or married off to allies outside the palace. Every rumor is traced to its source like a hunter following tracks, every potential threat neutralized with gifts, promises, or quiet exile. The palace becomes an organism with one heartbeat, hers pulsing with efficiency and caution. She commissions tutors for her children, ensuring they learn not only the Quran but strategy, languages, and the art of governance. But ruling an empire of men through whispers demands constant vigilance, a ceaseless balancing of alliances. Envoys from Venice and England address her as Kösem, Sultan Hanım Hazretleri, Her Exalted Majesty, bearing gifts of clocks and fabrics in hopes of favorable trade. Common folk in the bustling bazaars of Istanbul call her Ana Sultan, Mother of the Nation, for her charities that release debtors from prison and provide dowries for orphan girls. To the jealous courtiers and scheming pashas, however, she is the spider in the web, her influence a threat to their ambitions. Outside the palace walls, the world turns increasingly grim. The empire wages endless campaigns against Persia, losing Baghdad in 1624 amid bloody sieges. The treasury strains under inflation and corruption. Famine grips the plains of Anatolia, driving peasants to desperation. Cossack pirates raid Black Sea ports, prompting Kösem to order the construction of fortresses at Anadolukava and Rumelikava to guard the Bosphorus. Plagues ravage Egypt and Yemen, disrupting vital revenues, while rebellions flare in Lebanon and Crimea. From her gilded cage, Kösem feels the weight of suffering across thousands of miles, her correspondence revealing a mind attuned to logistics, gunpowder shortages, troop movements, and alliances with Mughal India. In her private prayers, performed 5 times daily in a chamber adorned with Islamic tiles, she asks God not for power, but for clarity and for her sons to live long enough to earn the mercy she must often withhold in the name of stability. By the time Murad IV reaches 16, the boy who once clung to his mother's skirts has grown into a young man chafing under her guidance. He sees in her regency not protection, but a chain binding his throne, her counsel a reminder of his youth. Whispers from advisors stoke his resentment, painting Kösem as an overreaching shadow. Murad demands independence, ending her formal regency in 1632 amid a Janissary uprising that kills the Grand Vizier and shakes the palace. Kösem understands this shift. She has studied the rhythms of men and crowns, the ebb and flow of ambition and insecurity. With grace, she steps back into the harem's recesses, allowing Murad the illusion of unfettered rule while quietly guiding his ministers through discreet letters and intermediaries. Her patience, forged in years of waiting, will save him and the empire from self-destruction. Murad proves fierce, a lion unleashed. He bans alcohol and tobacco with draconian edicts, closing taverns and executing offenders in public spectacles to instill fear. Disguised as a commoner, he prowls Istanbul's streets at night, meting out justice with his own hands. He crushes Janissary revolts with ruthless precision, executing thousands and reforming the court to break their hold on power. Yet behind these harsh acts lingers Kösem's counsel, discipline to prevent chaos, fear tempered to avoid madness. It is she who persuades him to lead the triumphant campaign to retake Baghdad in 1638, a victory that restores Ottoman pride after years of humiliation, celebrated with parades where Kösem rides in a gold-draped carriage, waving to adoring crowds. In the harem, Kösem becomes a living legend, her presence a blend of awe and trepidation. Young concubines whisper her name as both prayer and warning, seeking her favor for advancement or protection. Even the chief eunuchs, guardians of the inner sanctum, tread lightly in her presence, knowing her word can elevate or exile. Her private rooms, overlooking the Bosphorus, smell of jasmine incense and fresh parchment. Her evenings are filled with the rustle of incoming letters from spies, the scratch of quills drafting responses, and the low hum of recited Quran verses that bring solace amid intrigue. She commissions architectural wonders, the Chinili Mosque in Üsküdar, adorned with blue tiles depicting paradise gardens, and fountains that provide clean water to the city's poor. For 2 decades, Kösem has ruled without a crown, her influence permeating every corner of the empire like the fragrance of her perfumes unseen. Though history credits her sons with victories, diplomats from foreign courts know the truth. Policy flows from the Valide's chambers, shaping alliances, quelling rebellions, and sustaining the realm through wars, plagues, and economic woes. Her Waqf's charitable foundations fund pilgrimages to Mecca, irrigate the Nile's banks, and feed thousands in soup kitchens, earning her the title al-Mu'minin, Mother of the Believers. When Murad IV's final campaign ends in glory, his health falters irreparably. Years of relentless battle, sleepless nights haunted by plots, and harsh decrees enforced with an iron fist have burned the youth from his body, leaving him weakened by cirrhosis and exhaustion. In the bitter winter of 1640, as snow blankets Istanbul's domes, he calls for his mother from his deathbed. Witnesses recount how, when Kösem enters the chamber, her veil framing, a face etched with worry, the mighty conqueror of Baghdad, softens into the boy who once sought solace in her embrace, his voice trembling as he seeks her blessing. Murad dies at 27, the same tender age as his father, his passing mourned with state funerals and prayers echoing from every minaret. Once again, the empire turns to Kösem, her grief a private storm amid public duty. Her next son, Ibrahim, ascends the throne, but where Murad had been a tempest of strength, Ibrahim is a fragile reed bent by years of confinement in the cafes, the palace's shadowed cages where princes were kept to prevent rebellion. Isolation has shattered his mind. He fears mirrors that reflect his paranoia, shadows that whisper conspiracies, and even the silence that amplifies his inner demons. The empire, once thundering with armies marching to victory, now quivers under a ruler afraid of his own court, his decisions swayed by astrologers and whims rather than wisdom. Kösem becomes both mother and warden, a dual role that tests her endurance. She shields him from the web of conspiracies spun by ambitious viziers, soothes his terrors with tales from their shared past, and manages the empire in his name with unflagging resolve. Ministers bypass the Sultan, bringing petitions directly to the mother who holds the world together, her chambers. A hub of governance where she appoints grand viziers like Kemankesh Kara Mustafa Pasha and negotiates truces amid ongoing wars. She summons healers and sorcerers, including the infamous Chinchi Hoka, to cure his impotency, ensuring the dynasty's continuation by providing concubines to bear heirs. But even her boundless patience cannot heal Ibrahim's fractured psyche. His obsessions spiral into eccentricity, demanding rooms filled with the scent of ambergris, cloaking himself in heavy furs during summer heats, and lavishing concubines with jewels that drain the treasury like a breached dam. He listens to charlatans over statesmen, igniting the disastrous Cretan War against Venice in 1645, a naval campaign that ends in blockade and famine. Kösem watches with deepening sorrow, knowing the son she protects may unwittingly destroy the empire she has painstakingly built. In time, the ministers and janissaries, weary of taxes and defeats, act decisively. They depose Ibrahim in 1648, imprisoning him in the cafes where his cries echo through the night. Kösem, torn between maternal love and imperial necessity, consents to his execution by fatwa. If there are two caliphs, kill one, strangling him with a silk cord to end the threat. His young son Mehmed IV ascends at 6, making Kösem Valide Sultan once more, this time as grandmother, or Büyük Valide, her authority absolute across 3 generations of sultans who have worn her protective shadow like a cloak against the world's tempests. Outside the palace, the empire breathes uneasily under gathering clouds. Venetian warships prowl the restless seas, blockading the Dardanelles and starving the capital. Rebellions simmer in the Balkans, where Orthodox subjects chafe under Ottoman rule. And economic woes, inflation from debased coinage, lost revenues from war-torn provinces threaten collapse. But inside the labyrinthine halls of Topkapi, the true battle rages not with swords and cannons, but in the subtle currency of whispers, glances, and shifting loyalties. The new sultan's mother, Kösem Sultan, a young, proud Ukrainian, beauty gifted to Ibrahim as a concubine, emerges as a formidable rival. Ambitious and unyielding, Turhan views Kösem not as a protector of the realm, but as an obstacle blocking her path to power. The Harem, once a unified domain under Kösem's steady hand, fractures into factions. Eunuchs pledge secret allegiances. Viziers balance precariously between the 2 Valide sultans, and concubines whisper secrets that could topple either side. Still, Kösem holds her dignity with the poise of a seasoned ruler. She spends her mornings in acts of charity, overseeing the distribution of food from the soup kitchens she established decades earlier, feeding the poor who gather at the palace gates with bread, rice, and lamb stew. She sends alms to Mecca for the Hajj pilgrims, gifts of books and gold to scholars in madrasas, and detailed letters to governors urging reforms in distant islets like Egypt and Syria. When she walks through the sun-dappled courtyards, her silver-threaded caftan trailing like a river of light, even the battle-hardened janissaries bow their heads in respect, calling her Valide-i Muazzama, the magnificent mother. At night, in the quiet sanctuary of her apartments, She sits before flickering oil lamps, reading verses from the Quran that Ahmed once recited to her in hushed tones. The city hums beyond the lattice windows, the distant clamor of bazaars, the splash of oars on the Bosphorus, the eternal call to prayer echoing over domes, and minarets like a lullaby for the soul. She whispers to herself, her voice a soft echo in the vast chamber. Empires are not built by men alone. They are held by the hands of women who remember what men forget, the fragility of peace, the cost of ambition, the threads that bind a nation. Her reflection flickers in the polished brass of her lamp, older now. Her once moon-like face lined with the maps of worry and wisdom, her hair streaked with silver like moonlight on waves, yet still commanding, a testament to endurance. She wonders how history will remember her, as the foreign girl who tamed an empire with cunning and compassion, or the mother who loved it too fiercely, sacrificing even her own for its survival. The year is 1651, a time when the Ottoman sun seems to dim under the weight of endless strife. Kösem is now over 60, a remarkable age for any soul in an era where disease and dagger claim lives prematurely, especially for a woman who has outlived 3 sultans, countless rivals, and the ceaseless grind of court intrigue. Her grandson, Mehmed IV, is a child king surrounded by men eager to rule through his innocence, viziers like Siyavush Pasha, who plot in shadowed divans, and eunuchs who trade secrets like spices in the market. Turhan Sultan, the boy's mother, is guided by her own circle of advisors, ambitious men who fear Kösem's enduring power more than the Venetian fleets or Persian armies. Rumors drift through the palace like insidious smoke from hookahs. They whisper that Kösem plans to depose the young Mehmed, replacing him with his half-brother Suleiman, whose mother poses no threat to her dominance. The goal? To save the empire from the factionalism and greed that Turhan's inexperience invites. Perhaps it is true. Born of Kösem's desperation to preserve stability amid the Cretan war's failures and economic ruin. Perhaps it is a fabrication, fragments of truth shaped into weapons by her enemies. History offers only shards of evidence, pieced together by chroniclers like Evliya Çelebi, who mourn her as a philanthropist unjustly slain. One humid August evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the Bosphorus in hues of crimson and gold, the palace corridors shimmer with the soft glow of lamplight. Outside, the waterway glows like a thread of molten glass, fishermen casting nets under the watchful eyes of gulls. Kösem sits at her ebony desk, quill in hand, writing missives to allies, perhaps instructions for janissaries loyal to her cause, or pleas for mercy in a world grown cruel. A sound stops her hand mid-stroke, the soft shuffle of many feet, muffled but purposeful, approaching her chambers. The assassins, over 100 eunuchs led by Suleiman Aya, Turhan's chief black eunuch, burst in, their faces masks of grim determination. Kösem flees through hidden passages she knows like the veins in her hand, hiding in a narrow cabinet amid silks and jewels, betrayed by the hem of her dress peeking out. She is dragged forth, her composure unbroken even as chaos erupts. Some accounts say she faced them standing tall, her silver hair uncovered like a crown of defiance. Others, that she offered bribes of gold coins and diamonds worth empires. Her voice, calm even in betrayal, is said to have murmured, "Do not do this. I have built what you are trying to destroy. The schools for orphans, the fountains for the thirsty, the peace that holds this realm together. The struggle is brief but fierce." She bites one assailant's hand, drawing blood, before they strangle her with a curtain cord, or, as some whisper, her own long braids. When dawn breaks, painting the sky in soft pinks, the corridors fall silent, and the moon-faced girl from the Aegean, the one who ruled sultans, commanded armies and shaped centuries, lies still, her legacy etched in the stones of the empire she saved. In the aftermath, the palace descends into a hush of shock and scheming. Her body is washed according to sacred custom, anointed with rosewater that mingles with the scent of her perfumes, and wrapped in pristine white silk, embroidered with verses from the Quran. She is carried in a somber procession to the mausoleum beside Ahmed I, the man who first saw her not as a slave from distant shores, but as an equal soul worthy of love and partnership. In death, they are reunited, two halves of a story that wove through the fabric of an empire, their tombs a quiet testament amid the grandeur of the Sultan Ahmed Mosque. For weeks, the people of Istanbul whisper her name in mourning, markets closing in respect as word spreads through coffeehouses and hammams. Fishermen on the Bosphorus recite prayers for her soul as they cast their nets. Women in the bustling bazaars tell tales of her wisdom and generosity, sharing stories of how she freed slaves after years of service, providing them wages and marriages. Even those who feared her iron will cannot deny what she achieved. That for half a century, a woman held the Ottoman throne steady through storms of war, plague and rebellion, preventing the dynasty's extinction and steering the ship of state with unerring hand. The palace, ever resilient, moves on. New sultans will rise, their reigns marked by fresh intrigues and conquests. Kösem Sultan assumes full power as Valide, her victory bittersweet amid the bloodstains. But none will match Kösem's endurance, her ability to navigate the treacherous currents of power with both cunning and compassion. Her foundations, schools that educate generations, fountains that quench eternal thirsts, charities that feed the forgotten, outlive her by centuries, standing as silent guardians in Üsküdar, Ankara, and beyond. Her descendants, through Mehmed IV and his line, will rule for generations more, her bloodline flowing quietly through the veins of empire like an underground river sustaining life. To understand Kösem is to grasp the profound paradox of empire, itself a realm of splendor and savagery where silk veils conceal steel daggers. She was both servant and sovereign, a slave who became a queen, beloved by the masses for her alms and despised by rivals for her unyielding grasp on power, generous in her waqfs that built mosques, madrasas and hands for merchants, yet ruthless in deposing those who threatened her vision, including her own son Ibrahim. Her reign reminds us that power in the Ottoman world was not always a man's domain, confined to the divan or battlefield. Behind the lattice screens of the harem, in chambers scented with incense and intrigue, decisions were made that shaped the fate of nations, from the recapture of Baghdad to the fateful invasion of Crete. The 17th century is indelibly marked as the Sultanate of Women, an era when mothers, wives, and daughters of sultans steered the empire's course, while men waged war on distant fronts or faltered in weakness and youth. Among them, figures like Safiye, Handan, and later Turhan, Kösem shone brightest, the moon around which others revolved. Her light illuminating paths through darkness, she used the tools permitted to her: compassion in freeing slaves and funding orphans' marriages, patience in waiting out storms of succession, and cunning in forging alliances through her daughters, weddings to pashas like Nasu and Hafiz Ahmed. She proved that leadership need not roar like a cannon. Sometimes it whispers like wind through lattices, influencing without overt command. Historians still debate her with fervor, their tomes filled with conflicting portraits. Was she a saint, a philanthropist who released debtors during holy months and irrigated Egyptian fields for the poor? Or a schemer, manipulating executions and wars for personal gain? Her wealth from tax farms in Lesbos and Cyprus, criticized for impoverishing peasants, a savior who averted dynastic collapse, or a manipulator whose interference hastened Ottoman decline? Perhaps she was all of these, a mosaic of virtues and vices. Human history rarely grants its heroes purity. It demands complexity, and Kösem embodied it fully. In the few letters that survive her, preserved in archives like fragile leaves, she signs her name not as queen or empress, but as Kösem, the humble servant of the Padishah. Yet she knew, and so did every vizier, ambassador, and commoner who read them, that her signature carried the weight of an empire, her words commanding obedience across continents. Centuries have washed over the stones of Topkapi, like waves eroding cliffs, transforming the once impregnable palace into a museum of echoes. Tourists from distant lands wander through its rooms, their footsteps tracing paths where Kösem once spoke in measured whispers, plotting the course of history. The fountains she built still murmur softly in shaded courtyards, their waters a cool respite for weary visitors. The marble halls gleam with the memory of her footsteps, polished by time into eternal shine. The Chinili Mosque stands proud in Üsküdar, its blue tiles a canvas of paradise that draws pilgrims and artists alike. At night, the Bosphorus reflects the moonlight as it did in her time, a silver ribbon winding between continents. When the muezzin's call echoes from the minarets, pure and haunting, summoning the faithful to prayer, it carries the spirit of an age when a woman from beyond the sea rose to command the stars. Kösem's story endures, a testament to resilience, reminding us that empires may crumble, but the light of those who shape them never fully fades.